Imagine the moonlight glinting off an abandoned mansion, its windows dark and its corridors silent, until a lone, quivering plumber steps inside, torch in hand. Luigi's Mansion didn't just introduce us to a world of mischievous ghosts and eerie hallways. It gave Luigi his moment to shine, finally stepping out from Mario's colossal shadow and into the spotlight. In this video essay, we will unlock the hidden meaning behind Luigi's first solo adventure, explore how a humble spin-off became a defining chapter in Nintendo lore, and reveal why this nearly forgotten gem still haunts our imaginations today.
Nintendo.
Luigi's Mansion was released on the 14th of September 2001 as a launch title for the Nintendo GameCube. At the time, people felt bitterly disappointed by its existence. It felt very much like a substitute for a proper Mario game, which is something we'd all come to expect as launch titles for new Nintendo consoles. The Super Nintendo launched with Super Mario World, and the N64 launched with Mario 64, both of which are widely considered to be two of the greatest games ever made. Luigi's Mansion, conversely, is not widely considered one of the greatest games of all time. But what does it mean?
Here we go!
Let's investigate. As if to assure us early on that despite the familial connection, this is definitely not a Mario game, Luigi can't even jump. The big green button on the GameCube controller screams,
I am a jump button.
but it doesn't make Luigi jump. It just makes him say,
Mario! Mario! Mario!
in a voice increasingly trembling the more damage he's taken. It also felt a lot like a tech demo. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing for a launch game. F-Zero and Pilot Wings on the SNES had this quality, and some of the effects in Mario 64, like the rippling water or the reflective metal surfaces, had that quality too. The graphics are a dramatic improvement over the peak of the Nintendo 64, with lush new effects like fabric flowing in the wind, or this, and lots of previously impossible roundness to the character models.
That's not very round. No, that's not very, it's jagged. Oh, look at that, that's fucking round, that is fucking round. Look at that fucking doorknob, so fucking round.
It actually still looks pretty good a quarter of a century later. One of the reasons its graphics remain impressive is Nintendo opted for a more cartoony style. When you compare it to other games of the time which tried so hard to look realistic, Luigi's Mansion comes off better because the realistic style of a lot of games, particularly on the PlayStation 2, quickly became outdated as more realistic graphics were developed. The new analog shoulder buttons have a bit of a tech demo quality to them as well. You can gently suck or blow out of your vacuum cleaner, and fully clicking in the buttons feels really satisfying.
Click. Click again.
There's rarely any real need for pressing the shoulder buttons gently outside of using your flamethrower, because, yeah, your vacuum cleaner is also a flamethrower, and a water hose. And a third thing I couldn't remember because I haven't played this game since a time when I still had hopes and dreams and could stay awake past 11 PM. Turns out it's ice. Initially, the mansion is almost all locked up, so you have to collect a lot of keys to open these doors. The fact that it's set in a mansion with a load of locked doors makes it feel like it's referencing Resident Evil. The first few Resident Evil games all had static camera angles, which evoked the low-budget style of the original Night of the Living Dead film. Luigi's Mansion, on the other hand, has an aesthetic reminiscent of dioramas. This is because the game was originally intended to utilise an abandoned stereoscopic 3D mode, which was never released. This ambition would later be realised by the stereoscopic 3D capabilities of the 3DS sequel. The first hour is all quite linear, and there's rarely more than one new room to go to. The rest of the gameplay involves shining a torch on ghosts to reveal their hearts, and then quickly sucking them up into your Poltergust 3000. Of course, when I was a kid, things with sci-fi names were called the something or other 2000. But then the year 2000 happened and suddenly 2000 sounded weedy and inadequate like me, so we had to upgrade it. I wonder if people in the 10th century would call things the something or other 1000. I've been developing a new type of muck. I call it the lovely pile of muck 1000. It's easy to make a comparison to Ghostbusters because the vacuum cleaner is worn like a backpack, and there's certainly some references taken from Ghostbusters, but actually it's more about mental hygiene, which I'll explain later. You make your way through the mansion, trying to reach the place where Mario is being held, trapped in a painting, perhaps as an ironic punishment for all those paintings he violated a few years prior. You fight boss ghosts along the way and turn them into or back into portraits using this cool Looney Tunes Rube Goldberg-esque machine. And a lot of the ghosts have an interesting spectral look to them. I think they took a lot of the visual reference for the ghosts from the 1995 Casper movie. The way they look see-through but solid, they have a kind of light bulb quality. In Luigi's Mansion though, they're more colourful, giving them that Nintendo feeling. The music and sound design is all really nice as well. The music is that kind of child-friendly spooky, like Count Duckula or something, and they really nailed these sound effects. Some of the music is pretty funky. Listen to this. Yeah. I'm not going to rap. Can you imagine? Can you imagine me rapping? Just imagine the utter cringe of such a thing. All of the aesthetic elements, the look, the sound, the feel, come together really well. Once you've exercised all the ghosts in a room, the lights come on, and then you can search for booze, which I seem to be having difficulty pronouncing. Booze. Booze. You search for booze using this detection device where a light flashes on top of the Game Boy Horror when there are round objects hidden in the room, and it flashes red when there's a round object right next to you. Sometimes the round objects are booze, and sometimes they're bombs or balloons which get stuck in your vacuum. During all this, Luigi becomes mind-bogglingly wealthy, amassing millions of gold, whatever that means. At the end of the game, you're given a final score based on the amount of gold you obtained. The total amount you accumulate buys you a commensurately large house to replace the Phantom Mansion, which disappears once you exorcise all the ghosts. Around 44 million buys you a little shack which seems mental until you realise that 44 million yen is about £200,000 in today's money. Now I know you're all screaming at YouTube going, we know all of that. When is he going to start talking about how this game is an allegory for fascism? Right now. The reason fascism can be so persuasive is that it employs a number of sympathetic strategies which all reinforce one another. What they wanted to tackle with Luigi's Mansion is the interplay between prejudice and fear. Humans are very biased. It's a huge part of our very beings. A lot of the psychological research coming out these days suggests that humans are just completely ruled by our prejudices, and all of our reasoning is just a story we come up with after making these snap judgments to justify the snap judgments we've made. I'm not saying that you're prejudiced and I'm not. I'm saying it's deep within us. For millions of years back into our ancestry, we survived by making these snap judgments. Our conscious decisions are like a cork, getting tossed about on the tumultuous waves of the ocean of our subconscious prejudices. That's just how the human mind works. When we hear something we agree with, we get a rush of dopamine, and when we hear something we disagree with, our amygdalae activate, making us feel fear and a need to defend ourselves, like we're being physically attacked. This is also called the fight or flight response. In this state, we're more susceptible to programming, so fascists exploit our natural prejudices by using populist rhetoric and then programming our minds with fear. Populism has a number of definitions. In this context, by populist rhetoric, I mean the political tactic of telling you things that you already believe, especially if, unbeknownst to you, they aren't actually true or are based on conspiracism. This is a fear-based cult-like indoctrination process. A cult leader will tell you that the world has either already been destroyed or is on a knife edge awaiting destruction, and only the faithful, the chosen members of the in-group, will be saved. Admission to the in-group is exclusively reliant on the caprice of the leader. You've probably noticed how frequently, utterly, and remorselessly members of Trump's inner circle are cast out. Fascist propaganda tells you that you are surrounded by enemies on all sides, who have infiltrated and corrupted the whole world. The left, the woke, Marxists, the EU, tofu, NASA, NATO, NHS admin staff, the World Health Organization, Bill Gates, snowflakes, George Soros, immigrants, gay people, trans children, trans athletes, trans activists, asylum seekers, unemployed people, disabled people, Muslims, vaccines, chemtrails, vegans, oat milk, the media, autism diagnoses, cyclists, intellectuals, experts, teachers, the whole education system, the moon landing, feminists, elites, the rich, the poor, the middle class, young people, art, artists, women and black people in Star Wars, fluoride, environmentalists, the woke.
Great Britain is under attack. You and I, as you watch this video, we are under attack and we must act fast because our children's future depends on it. Our elderly, our disabled, our farmers are all under attack right now.
The purpose of this is to imprison you in a cage of fear. Once this is achieved, you will seek a saviour. And how do you identify the saviour? Because they're the ones who tell you what you want to hear. They exploit your prejudices by echoing them. This makes you feel that everything outside of the loving embrace of the cult is evil and treacherous, so that even when it inevitably becomes indisputable that the cult leaders are just con artists who never had any intention of delivering on any of their promises,
the £350 million a week we send to the EU, which we will no longer send to the EU, can you guarantee that's going to go to the NHS?
No, I can't, and I would never have made that claim.
The day I take the oath of office, I will rapidly drive prices down and we will make America affordable again. Prices will come down, you just watch. They'll come down and they'll come down fast.
even when all the facts and evidence point to the exact opposite of what you've been told, your conscious mind will still not allow you to question the leader or the doctrine, and commonly you'll lash out at any evidence that contradicts your worldview. Again, this isn't something that only people who've been indoctrinated by fascist propaganda experience. It's how the human mind works. Really difficult to overcome this. Although it's impossible to be completely free of prejudice, that's not an excuse for cultivating disproportionate collections of prejudices. You need to examine them. That's one of the most important duties you have as a human being. Because if you let your prejudices take you over and completely override your decency and your humanity, you become vulnerable to indoctrination. As the internet gets increasingly overwhelmed with fake information and the fakery becomes increasingly sophisticated and convincing, it's more important than ever that you learn to identify your own prejudices. It's particularly urgent now because of the resurgence of Nazism all over the world. Nazis are truly shameless and more than willing to use any tool to get you. Exploiting your paranoid fantasies is their bread and butter. In this Iwata Asks interview about Luigi's Mansion, which I haven't read, they potentially talk about the metaphor, the theme of the game. I'm going to read an excerpt from this source that I just invented to prove my point. Iwata says, "Miyamoto-san, what's up with the ghosts in this game?" Miyamoto says, "Yes, we wanted to show that you need to try to analyse your beliefs." The theme is prejudices. When Luigi arrives at the mansion, he has an idea in his head about it. We show this visually with the picture he holds. And even though the actual mansion is clearly evil, he presses ahead with his first belief, and this is very nearly enough to trap him forever in a cage of fascistic exploitation. But he's rescued by a kind, Marxist intellectual. Historically, of course, the greatest enemy of fascism is Marxism, Soviet Russia versus the Nazis, communists who overthrew Mussolini, the list goes on, and the professor teaches Luigi to shine a light on his prejudices, or ghosts, the light of knowledge and self-reflection. Only after banishing all the ghosts does the mansion, his mental prison, disappear. We like to label people as racist because it dismisses them and sets them apart from us. They are racist and we are the people who are definitely not racist. But really, we all have prejudices. The requirement for being a good person is not to have no prejudices, it's to try to analyse them and overcome them. Telling yourself you don't have any is the worst way to attempt that. So there you go, the theme of Luigi's Mansion is analysing your prejudices and the importance of doing so. And now, the big question. Is it worth playing? Yeah,